Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Convention Confessional. My name is Katy Hunt, and I am here to guide you through the good, the bad, the ugly, and I guess some panels because our wonderful friend Doug is back again for some more of this fine torture. Hi, Doug.
Hi there. This isn't torture. This is a delight.
This is a delight.
Maybe. I mean, the last one was me being talking about staffing, so maybe I'm just a masochist. We'll see.
Fool me once. No, I'm so excited to have you back on the show. You were so excited to come back on the show, so I was like, hell yeah, you can come back whenever you want to. It beats me talking to myself half the time.
Oh, you're gonna regret that now.
There's a whole month of Doug.
Yeah.
I'm down for it. This week,
There-
Doug's going to talk about. Well, Doug,
Yep.
you're talking about panels today, right?
Right. So panels is something I've really gotten into over the past, well, more than a few years now, more than I really want to admit. Um, and it's really something that's kind of part of the convention experience for me these days.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy finding topics that I want to talk about. I have kind of a few like repertoire ones that I'll update and change, as new information comes in, things like that. If those of you that go to Anime Boston, I've been running a panel called All the Mecha You'll Ever Need for over 10 years now, which when I think about that just blows my mind that I've been doing that for that many years. And it's very flattering to realize that that's become a staple of some people's Anime Boston. Like they go to it every year because it's not really something that's, you know, how to put it. It's not something that is the same panel every year. Like we kind of have the same skeleton, like a little bit of like, we're always going to, talk about, we have a section that is the underrated mecha. So like, here's giant robot shows that you might not know about that we think are worth checking out.
Right. Like not your typical
Um,
Gundam Wing, G Gundam.
yeah. But and then we also do the random attack name shouting contest, which if you're a fan of super robot type mecha shows, the heroes are always shouting the attack names of whatever they're doing, and sometimes they seem like three random words. So literally, we get a handful of like basically each panelist, because I have a group of friends that join me, chooses their champion from the audience, whoever wants to do it, and
Right.
each person gets literally three random words that I've just like come up with a bunch of words and said, okay, this is going to be their first word, this is going to be your second word, this is going to be your third word, and it's like they pull them out of like an envelope, like like
Yeah.
and so it's like epic dynamic toast or something like that. But that's their, and like we get a hand mic and they yell like the most like, you're fighting the final boss, go for it, and kind of through applause they get some sort of prize.
Oh my god. I didn't know you read that panel. I knew about your Gundam one. I didn't know about this one.
So
What a fun
then,
yell.
so I kind of started doing a Gundam by doing Gundam panels, and they're still something I do a lot of. My very first panel experience was back in Anime Boston 2004, where this was, when I'm still young and think I know more than everybody. And, like, oh, well, I'm going to join this panel and show up the panels because they put out like the call on the forums. And so, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to join this one friend of mine and we're going to show him up. And it's like, okay, cool. And like we had a fun little time. It was a little disorganized because it was more of the traditional panel, like a science fiction, sci-fi con,
Right.
where you have just kind of a panel discussion. It's not really a structure. Whereas nowadays in anime conventions, they're much more of kind of a keynote presentation or things like that. Like you have much more scripted things.
Yeah.
So, but it was, and then it kind of the following year, it's like, well, no one's else like put out the call. Why don't we run it? And so I started doing it, and I was just kind of generic Gundam panel, and I don't even remember what it's called. I'd have to go digging through my old Anime Boston program guides to find out what it was called. But we started running it, and there was a couple of years, and then there was, I want to say it was Anime Boston 2008, maybe 2007. I'm not sure again. But the I just remember the panel, like being I was still on security staff at that time, and I think I had become either become an assistant manager or the manager at that point, like one of the red shirts in
Hmm.
security. And I just said, I can't run the Gundam panel this year. I can't do it. I got to focus on my staff work, which nowadays it's like, yeah, well, I'm doing staff and this because this is how I make sure I have a fun session. Um, but I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll not worry about it. And I want to say it was Saturday of the con. Um, I hear over the radio, and this is before like every security staffer has the same type of like good radio. They most have walkie talkies, and only the managers had the really good ones.
Hmm.
Hey, security is not letting anyone into the this panel room, and it's like it's the Gundam panel room. Like, okay, well, I guess as security leadership, I should go down there and find out what's going on.
Sure, sure.
Because, and so I'm like, I asked like the orange shirt staffer, why aren't you letting in? And like, there's no panelists. There's no panelist for this, and there's like a line around the corner. Um, okay, what is this panel? Oh, it's like it's supposed to be the Gundam panel. Um, okay, hold that thought for a second. Um, and I basically look down the line and I see, um, uh, I guess I'll call a friend like I didn't know super well, but who had done Gundam panels with me before. I'm like, so what are you doing right now?
Wait
It's
in
like,
line for
oh,
Star Wars. What are you doing?
it's like, this is the line for Nick's tickets, right?
Right, right.
And so it's like, it's just gonna be like, I was gonna be in the audience and see if I could troll them and correct them, like whatever they know, because we definitely know it's like, there's no panelist. So like, think we could make up a Gundam panel on the fly? And so his response was, "Well, if anybody could do it, it'd probably be us." And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay, cool." Um, I hop back on my radio. I'm like, "Well, this is Doug," and I call the head of panels, and it's like, "You don't have panelists. It's the Gundam panel. Any objection to me just taking it over and doing it for myself, so you guys actually have one? Go for it. Cool. This is Doug. I'll be off radio for like 60, 90 minutes, whatever it was.
Hmm.
Um, I'll let you know when I'm back on.
Right.
Click, hop on stage, and so it's basically me and this other guy Corey, just like, so we're making this up as we go because no one's there. What do you guys want to do about Gundam?
Right. It's like all of a sudden the screen comes down. You're just like, all right, so this is a Gundam. Oh yes,
Yeah, this. Oh,
awesome. That sounds so
yeah.
typical though. Like you don't think about that happening because a lot of the time panelist shows up, but I know I've been in that situation where we get calls over going, "Does anybody know anything about this topic?" Because this panel didn't show up, and it's like, what do you know about furries? Not enough. Not enough
there,
to
there,
do this.
I have heard of some conventions basically keeping like a running list of like people, like staff members that like are have been proven that they can make up a panel on a certain topic,
Hmm.
or it's like, oh, I always have the slide deck for this panel on my laptop. If someone's a no show and you need someone to fill some content, like, or back like flakes or whatever,
Right.
as long as my schedule's free, I can run this panel right away.
Right. That's always
Which is,
It's always crazy to me though when people don't show up for their panels because I mean, like, I'm not saying it's like super hard to get a panel approved, but I mean, some of the bigger conventions because so many people put stuff out there, it's like if you get your panel approved, it's like show up, guys, because like almost 100 people behind you didn't get theirs approved.
yep. And it makes both you and the con look bad and everything like
Yeah.
that. And I understand life happens,
Oh yeah, 100%.
or you look at the schedule and it's like, well, the one must do event that I had wanted to do is now scheduled during my panel, and that's why like you probably either tell scheduling, hey, is there any way you can change this, or you just say, look, this was my whole reason for coming to the convention. I can't do this. Like I've seen stuff where they they've like scheduled a panel of like, say, so and so creator, this panel, like, or so and so's doing autographs, like,
Mm-hmm.
just the made up example. Someone's like, oh, it's Hayao Miyazaki's doing an autograph session. So let's schedule the Studio Ghibli panel that people are running at the same time. And it's like, no, like, why? Don't.
Or
Yeah, yeah. So,
oh man.
um, so, but I mean, I like I said, I've kind of built like up a repertoire of panels. I've done some crazy stuff. All the mecha you'll ever need like has become very special to me because we've run it for so long. And I mentioned like um the attack name shouting contest, which is always a blast. Um, I have two other great stories that I always remember. And I mean, there's been a lot of great moments. Like we're very lucky that we always get a really fun audience. Um, but one of the ones I just remember is running it one year. I was just exhausted. I think this was when I was still facilities manager, so I was like running on like 3 hours of sleep, maybe. and and it's like, and I just like I misspoke, like said like I said this when I meant that or something.
You upset the
Doesn't really
nerds.
matter. I didn't. Well, that's the thing. I didn't upset, but it's like I misspoke and immediately caught myself. And I'm like, sorry guys, I'm on 3 hours of sleep. And another one of the panelists at the time was also on staff. He's like, yeah, me too. And I just joked and was like, oh, Anime Boston staff, we're killing ourselves for you. Because as a panelist, that's how you own stuff like that. You're gonna make mistakes. You just own the awkwardness.
Oh yeah.
What I didn't expect was the room to then give us a standing ovation. Like oh my god, you guys,
I'm on
like
3 hours of
uh,
sleep. I can't do this right now.
oh, it's like and it's just kind of like, okay, who's cutting the onions?
Right.
Like
Jesus.
it was one of the most um sweetest moments, and it's something I've always been reminded is so many times at conventions fans will kind of find ways to surprise and recharge you.
Mm-hmm.
um and then there's the time, I think this was the last Anime Boston, because now we've gone 2 years without one.
Ugh.
But I again, we have the underrated mecha section, and it's a lot of just like fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I chose one series that I was like, I'm gonna go to bat to this, because I get really annoyed that people bash this series, and I think it does not deserve all the hate it gets, because I think people associate it with its weaker sequel. They don't look at just the first series.
Right.
So, and then it's, so it's like, so I went to bat for Gundam Seed,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is a pretty good one. But a lot of, I don't know if you know this, nerds have opinions.
No, no, what? No, the basement dwellers have opinions. I don't believe you.
And watching the audience all of a sudden turn on me and
Ah,
just like, no, this man is wrong, and we need to let him know.
so
And
you went from being praised like a god to being the scum of the earth. Basically, is what you're
yeah,
telling me.
yeah, and it's like, but I defended my point, and it was really fun like that. Gundam panels at other conventions besides Anime Boston. I've gone on and off doing sometimes at Otakon, sometimes I'll apply and get accepted. Sometimes I'll apply and not get accepted. Sometimes I just like, what, I'm taking a year off. I don't have time to make a panel, whatever.
Right.
Um, but I've done that. Like I've done like I got to do what I called my white whale panel, and I've done it a couple other times, which was Gundam for newbies,
Mm-hmm.
which is so many people like, I want to learn about Gundam, but I don't know where to start. Come to this panel.
Come to me.
If you're a Gundam fan and you want someone to get into it, bring them to this panel.
Mm-hmm.
Because we shouldn't be, as nerds, we shouldn't be doing gatekeeping. We should be welcoming everybody.
Right. Star Wars.
And yeah, seriously.
Sorry, something in my throat. So sorry.
Yeah. This Otakon online for 2020, I've started doing this panel, which has kind of become one of my stable ones, of the wild world of Gundam merchandise, which is just all the craziest shit that's actually legit Gundam merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
And just like finding it and sharing it and like just talking about it. And it's one of those rapid fire slides, just keep doing it. And as more merchandise comes out or I find more about it, I can swap things in and out. But I was when Otakon did their online one, they obviously could only do a lot fewer panels, but they invited me to do it for them as their streaming, which was a very humbling and awesome experience. But in that panel, I talked about, oh well, there's this underwear they made for promoting stuff that looks like the crotch section of a Gundam, and it's like so you can have it look like a Gundam crotch while you're in your underwear. And I immediately I look on Twitter afterwards just to see it, and it's and I see someone posted 15 minutes to my panel. Someone posted, "I didn't know Gundam crotch was a phrase I needed to know until today." It's like, well, my job's done.
It is part of your vocabulary now. You will use it every day.
Yep. So I've also been I've had some most panels I'm lucky enough to get middle of the day um stuff like that, which is pretty good. I've had some stuff be the earliest time of day possible at the convention, which is always rough no matter which day it is.
Oh yeah.
So I just remember I have three related to that. The first was the very first year of Anime NYC. I had a panel called Fandom from 15 years ago because I did it. It was originally anime fandom when Anime Boston began,
Mm-hmm.
which was a fun one to do and just see people's minds explode. Like, oh, here's this little known show that was just starting to get recognized in America. Maybe you've heard of it, and it was just starting to get an anime series when Anime Boston began. And it's the opening to Naruto, and just watching the look of delight switch to horror as they realize that was 15 years ago.
You're like, that's right. You're old. Next.
Yep. But I was literally by half an hour. I think by half an hour, the first and only, the very first panel of that convention in its first year, and it's just like, oh crap, when you look at the schedule, it's like I'm the first one of the day, and there's nothing else going on.
Nothing
For
going
panels
on.
against it, really, and this is the first year of the con. Oh god. A
Why?
little and I again I've been doing panels for over 10 years, and it was just a little bit of deer in headlights, like, oh god, I hope I don't mess this up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think we
But I
talk
mean
about it all day long.
but it was fun. So the other two is I want to say it was Otakon 2019. It was after it moved to Washington DC. um I was on 9 o'clock panels 2 days in a row, which was pretty rough.
Yeah.
um, but and I did this both time. The first one is there's a cafe in the Washington Convention Center. You can get a iced coffee or whatever, or you can get a small. I guess it's a growlette, not a full growler, like a growlette,
Yeah.
or little, of nitro cold brew coffee. So that kind of you have one that you pour throughout the day. Um, so um, one of my friends, Zan from the Spiraken podcast, grabbed it for me, that day. And it's like, oh, cool, have it. That's good. Got feel. And then the following day, I got it on my way to the other panel, and it was a mecha panel run by some of my other friends that run the Cockpit podcast, all about giant robots and stuff. And so I'm drinking this, and it comes time for me to talk about one of the shows that I really want to stump for. Die Rugger 15. It's the show that became Vehicle Voltron.
Okay.
And I I really like the Japanese version. I again, nerds have opinions, and so
No.
I'm stumping for it. And as I'm stumping for it, like talking about, like, yeah, oh, this is some really cool stuff. I wish, I want to see someone get this back into circulation because I wish more people could see the Japanese version. Um, and as I'm getting it, I realize I'm getting more animated. And I'm like, I realize I'm basically getting caffeine drunk because I've finished this entire thing of nitro cold brew coffee. So, jet fuel basically. And because I realize I'm getting drunk, like I'm drunk on caffeine,
Right.
I'm like, I can't stop this. So I'm just going to lead into it further.
Woo!
So I'm like, pounding my fist on the table. Like, it's like, yep.
I
And,
second.
yep. And so it's like, yep. Yeah. Everyone needs to watch this right now. The ending scene's so awesome. It's so cool.
I'm gonna pull it up on my phone and just show you. Just hold on.
Yeah. And then immediately, like, as soon as the panel's over, it's like running for the bathroom.
Oh, 100%, yeah. He's like, there you go.
Yeah, but yeah, so drunk on caffeine,
Oh my god.
talking about giant robots at 9 o'clock on a Saturday or Sunday
So
morning.
that's stuck kryptonite. Got it.
No, it just makes me more powerful.
It makes me more powerful.
I like that as I say more powerful, we hear that train in the background.
I know.
Or faster than a speedy locomotive.
I'm like, listen, the train stays in my podcast. I can't help it. Like, he goes by when he wants to, living his best train life. Like, it's kind of like my co-host.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it's so funny though, because as I've done more panels, like I have basically learned how to do panels just through experience, and there is an element of the only way to get better about it is keep doing it. You're going to make mistakes, you're going to find out what works. There's also been a lot of just going to other panels that I think are interesting and seeing like what works. Like I've learned how to have, like, better, like if I'm going to talk about an anime, instead of just have like a picture of it, like talk about it and then show a clip and things like that. Like when I bought a new computer, I'm like, well, I need to make sure that I can rip DVDs so I can get video content for panels. Like this is actually
aid.
This is this has actually informed my decision. Like, and it's not as not ripping as many clips as say as an AMV creator, but definitely.
What are you talking about? They get those completely legally, Doug.
Hey, they own it. They can do what they want, right? I think that's the way to. But it's like, I've done panels with some really interesting people. There's been some that's like people. It's like I could never do it again. There's people that have become some of my best friends because there's that kind of panel community of you just start to notice, oh, these are the people that all do the types of panels that I like, and we tend to have even if we have different tastes in anime, we still like talking about it in similar ways and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of sharing ideas and stuff like that. And if you ever want, one of the things I tend to get really super opinionated about is nowadays is you should be able to understand what your panel is about from the title. Because I've seen so many times where a panel, I look at it and it's like, okay, I see, because like when you look at like a schedule, like either the paper one or just the listing on like guidebook, all you're seeing right away is the panel title. You have to click into it or whatever, or open the program guidebook to get the actual description. And that's like, if you can't figure it out from the title, it's like, why even bother? Because you're just going to keep going,
right?
And so it's one of those things that becomes so opinionated about over the years is just have truth in advertising.
Oh yeah. Like don't name your panel after like old school anime and then talk about anime that happened like 3 years ago. I'm like, just because you're a fetus. Literally
I know
like that one. I was like, what? This isn't old school.
Yeah. Oh God, wow. And there's been like so many other things too. Like again, like I know I've gotten better and stuff like that. One of the greatest things ever said to me about me as a panelist was a friend from high school who I hadn't seen in at that point. It had to have been at least like 8 years, and even then only passing. Hadn't really seen each other and stuff. And he said he went to one of my panels and he came up to Avery. He's like, if I hadn't been able to see you with my own eyes and you introduced yourself at the panel, I would not believe you were the same guy that I knew in high school.
Oh,
Which is like, oh,
oh,
so it was one of the nicest things, and it's like again, it's helped me grow as a public speaker. It's also kept anime fandom alive for me. It's one of the things so many people talk about growing up out of conventions and stuff like that. And it's like, well, maybe part of that is you can't just consume the convention. If you want to keep it fresh, you have to go back and provide for that next generation. So we keep nurturing it and keeping it going.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
a lot of it is like, yeah, like you said, it's a lot of like, okay, well, maybe you don't want to like hang out on the con floor all day and like go in the dealer's room every 5 minutes and just go to Masquerade or something. It's like, obviously, you feel like you've got more to contribute to the convention, so contribute.
yep, and you can do a panel on just about anything as long as you can make it relevant to what the convention is.
Don't I know that?
So
See, you're running panels and educating people in different TV shows and Gundams and things like that, Doug. And I run panels about my mom's horrible cowboy novels. So, see, you're both educating people.
yeah. Um,
That's like
so
honestly like my one of the biggest panels I ever ran for a couple years at the convention in New Hampshire was Reading Ranch Live, and that was that YouTube show that I had going for a while, where I would just read excerpts out of my mother's like crappy like romance novels, like cowboy romance novels. And they needed to fill a spot, and I was just like, okay, you know what? I'll do a live version of it. Why not, right? Because why not? Nothing else going on. And they had to make it like 18 plus, obviously, because raunchy cowboy novels. Thanks, mom. And I'm like, no one's coming to this panel. Like, no one's coming to this. It's literally going to be me, my sister, our friend Lucas, like laughing in a room while I'm sitting there going through my mom's crap, right? And I get to the room that, my panel's going to be in, and there's a line, but there's like, it was one of those hallways, at like smaller conventions, like hotels and stuff, where it's like, you don't know what room they're going into because there's like four ballrooms next to each other. So
yep.
I'm standing there and I'm just like waiting and I'm like looking at the room and stuff. And I'm like, are you guys in line for something? And they go, oh, yeah, we're in line for Reading Ranch. And I'm like, all of you? And the whole hallway's like, yeah, all of us. I'm like, what? And
Eh,
I filled the room. I filled the room, Doug. And I sat there for an hour reading crappy romance novels.
there's always so many unsettling feelings you can have about the room size at a convention because sometimes it's like, oh God, I got the tiny room. Um, or um, or like I'm in a good medium sized room and
Right.
you feel a little bad that like five people had to be turned away because they can't stand in the back and block the exits. And
Right.
it's like you feel bad for them, but it's like whatever. And then sometimes you get that giant, like one of the largest rooms the convention has, and like you realize this is my room, and then it's like, oh God, it's gonna look like there's no one there. And then partially by the sake, like, and like I'm convinced, like sometimes it's like just because it's the biggest room, it fills up, and you're just like, are all you here for this?
Right.
And it's just like, and you're like, yeah, cool. And it's like,
Like, and I
are you
remember,
sure?
yeah, right. And I remember starting that panel going, what's wrong with you guys? Like, you had
Oh,
nothing else
absolutely,
to go
yeah.
to tonight? Like there is
Uh,
a dance down the hall, and you are here listening to me read about Chet or whatever his name is and his horse. I don't think so.
having that audience rapport is what always makes a panel go by so much faster, because like you break down that barrier of like, okay, I'm talking about this seriously, but I don't take myself too seriously, because that's like that. I mean, I will never be as good as someone like Charles Dunbar and stuff like that, but as a panelist, you always have to remember there's always going to be somebody better, like because you're your own worst critic.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you're always gonna have that person in the audience that thinks they know everything.
Oh yeah.
There's always that
Oh, and
guy.
yeah. I
You know who you
I
are. If you're listening to this, y'all know who you are.
I have a couple of that guys like um when I started going to Anime Next a couple years ago, like I had been away for years and years and years, and started going back because a bunch of my friends do it. Um, they there was one panel um, where I was just kind of in the audience, and one of my friends just put me on like, and this is, and they're like, that's so and so. Like they told me their name. I'm like, okay, and it's like, oh, oh wait, we didn't. Okay, we're telling you about that so and so. So and so is a that guy,
Mm-hmm.
and tends to go to a lot of the panels in front that we present and talk over the people, like when they're trying to give a question or just make comments. And it's like, so if you see this person in like your Q&A line or in your room when you're doing a panel,
Mm-hmm.
brace yourself. And yep, and sure enough, I just had to be like, oh nope, sorry, got to keep going. Like you have to, and it's you have to be assertive but not nasty, and it's difficult sometimes.
Right.
I mean, and like, I mean, I've seen people who've just like snap on the audience, and it's like, oh well, you just lost them.
Yeah.
Good luck. And it's like, again, we're all a bunch of nerds. Just don't take yourself too seriously, like
Right. It's all about the art of
because
sarcasm.
yeah, well, and self-deprecating humor goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, I don't know how else to put it.
Yep. Pretty much.
So, but that's really about it. I will say, panels has become the passion for me. I'm not going to say when we're recording this, but I should still hopefully be the featured panelist coordinator for Anime Boston 2022. I can't even
Woo-hoo!
remember what. So we were going to try to have this track in 2020, and then the world went crazy and haven't calmed down by 21. But this is now me leading into what I want to plug. But I'm gonna say, like, check this out because I think we're gonna have some really cool people talking about it, and some of these people I've never even seen their panels, but they've just come incredibly recommended by some people I know in kind of the panelist circuit, and I want to be able to do stuff like promote them and be like, hey, here's a chance to meet them all. Now that you've heard them, heard them, go check out their panels at the rest of the convention. Because we've had some featured panels, but we haven't like really. We know we can do better for promoting it.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, now that I know head of panels, obviously I've got an in to get one, correct?
I am not the head of
Damn
panels.
it, Doug, what good are you?
I am only in charge of the featured panels.
Ugh,
Sorry.
it's
I have the
fine.
ear of the head of the panels, but I can't make any promises.
Listen, nobody wants to hear me read cowboy novels. I don't. That's what I am.
We can save that for the staff rap party.
Yes! Dead dog!
There we go.
I'm just gonna stand on a table at Dead Dog and read terrible romance novels.
You will get a crowd. I know the people on that staff. I've known them for over 15 years. You will get a crowd.
Let me tell you a tale of Erp from Wyoming.
Oh,
Oh, Lord.
So yeah.
Oh, well, Doug, thank you so much. I always enjoy
My pleasure.
talking. We always have fun.
We do.
Is there anything else you'd like to promote while you're here? I mean, panels for AB, obviously.
I know I mentioned it last time, but Anime Cons TV, now that conventions are slowly trickling back,
It's happening!
yeah, we'll be doing more stuff there. So I would be remiss if I didn't remind people to check out Anime Cons TV.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, just and once again, stay safe, take care of each other, really.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and if you're going to conventions, check out some panels.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which ones I'll be going to next. I've got a couple that I'm looking at, but I can't say for sure whether or not I'll be doing them.
Mm-hmm.
So I might be doing those. And if you've I think a lot of people are a little timid about presenting a panel, and I say apply if there's a topic you're passionate about and can talk about it for you know an hour. Go for it,
Yeah.
and yeah, as you do it, you're only going to get better. So don't be afraid about if it's your first timer, because everyone's a beginner at some point. That's why it's called a beginner.
Yep. Yep. And there's always a panel for everybody and everything. I swear to God. Like
I
everything. Costumes.
some of the best. Yep.
Our friends run one about like how to like win a masquerade, basically. Not to toot our horn, but toot toot. And
Yeah.
but like just like stuff to help you out with your performances at masquerades, or like what judges might be looking for. There's panels about your shows. There's panels about food in like Japan, for God's sakes, right? Like I'm pretty sure I've seen food panels before.
I've seen at Anime Next. I am blanking on the panelist's name, and I feel horrible. That was all about just coffee culture in Japan. You can find it. You can find panels on just about anything, and if you can't find panels about everything, maybe it's your turn to make it.
Run the panel.
Yep.
Yeah, basically. Awesome. Well, that is another episode of Convention Confessional. Doug, thank you again. Always a pleasure. I'll have you back next week.
Pleasure's all mine, even if you get sick of me.
I will never get sick of you, I promise. Have a good night, everybody.
Take care, guys.